All right. Well, huge welcome back to everybody. This has been such a fun series this month of interviewing women who are what I call community makers. So they're out there not just saying, I want to make friends and I'm going to take care of making my friends here and there, but also being people who are like participating in community, helping make it happen, which means that they're giving the gift of connection and community to other people by doing that. And so we've been looking at a bunch of different ways to do community, to make community, to participate, to receive community. And this morning, I'm super excited to interview Andrea Owen. She has been on my radar for a long time. Wasn't it a couple years ago, Andrea? I think I was on your podcast, your Kick-Ass Life podcast that's been going for 6 years now.
I know.
And so she is also a coach. You coach a lot of women through perfectionism and for isolation and for all kinds of those inner critics, those voices that we have in our head. And I love that you're helping us feel more empowered and more loving. And you'll probably recognize her name. And I want to hear a little bit about this too with her book. She had like the best book ever come out. It was How to Stop Feeling Like Shit, 14 Habits That Are Holding You Back from Happiness. And that's been translated all over the world and is so fun to watch happen. And today I want to talk to her about how she has kind of been a part of a mastermind, what we would call a way to help support each other, to help make all these things that she's doing in her life possible. And I think of you, Andrea, because I feel like I saw a post of yours on social media, maybe even a couple of years ago. Isn't it funny how you posted something about your mastermind? And I remember thinking, how fun, I want to be in her mastermind, along with probably 14,000 other people said the same thing. And so when I was thinking about this, I just thought, I'm going to reach out to Andrea and see if she'd be willing to share with us your mastermind process. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Oh, what a beautiful introduction. Thank you so much. I always love an excuse to talk to you, Shasta. And
it's very fun.
Yeah, I love this topic so much. And I'm excited to talk to your audience about it and how they can incorporate this into their life. So yeah, super pumped.
Awesome. So start us off at the beginning of what have you been wanting to be a part of a mastermind? What kind of first triggered you thinking, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to participate in this, or what was the why behind it? Like what motivated?
I think I could start the story with telling you about how I decided to start my own business. So that was the beginning of it. But I think an even deeper reason for it, looking back and as just thought of this as you asked the question, is in my first marriage, I'm not married to that person anymore, but he had a large family where there was a lot of us and it was community, right? And what I know now is that our brains are wired for that. Like we're wired for community. We thrive in groups where there is trust and connection and love has been built over time, right? So when he and I got divorced, that all went away. And while I love my husband now, he's an only child and the family is much smaller. And so honestly, what was probably the biggest piece of grief, walking away from it, and getting divorced, was having to divorce the family and walking away from this community. And, and what my therapist has talked to me about, if you want to go even deeper, like this is trauma that I experienced. And so I think that, again, from a deeper level, it was something that I was craving so much. And while I was getting so much from my husband and, I had 2 small children at the time, very small children, like there was still this piece of me that was just yearning to be around specifically other women. And I absolutely positively know without a doubt that this is how, I think especially women, we are wired. We're wired to be in these groups together to support each other. And so it was sort of an easy kind of, I don't want to say excuse, but like reason for me to create this group was because I was just starting this business. I had 2 small babies, and my very first mastermind was a group of, I put specifically together, I reached out to, I think there were 5 of us total, and we were all moms of small children. And we definitely were women who we had just had our coaching certification. So we were just brand new starting out in our businesses. Some of us for sure knew that we wanted to create an online business. Some of them were doing it more in person and locally. So we just met. I mean, I can go into the logistics of it, but really that's where sort of the whole idea was sparked from, and the desire.
Beautiful. That's so awesome. I love the picture of all of you having these things in common and being moms of young kids and having this desire to support each other in this new career and everything. That's awesome. And so then you are the one who, did you know all 5, did you know these 4 other women from the program you were a part of? Or
I
how
did.
you know these women?
My alma mater is the Coaches Training Institute. So I knew them from that.
Okay.
And I just reached out to all of them and said like, hey, do you want to start this group? And I remember at the time we were living in a very small 2-bedroom condo, and it was difficult for us to all find a time that worked together. So we would get on a conference call, and I would have to go out into my garage because it was the only place where I could talk and not disturb anyone. And I remember, I'll never forget being on the phone. And I was just sweating because it was so hot. I lived in Southern California at the time. But it was like, whatever means necessary. Like, have this time with these women to just be able to be in community with them.
That's beautiful. So when you invited them, how much did you already know? Like, how much structure did you have in place? Was it like you already knew what exactly you were inviting them to, or was it more of an organic process? Like, I think so often we think it has to be a certain way. What did it look like for you?
It was sort of, that first group was a total learning lesson. So what we ended up doing, and I can't remember if it was the second group that I, when that one disbanded, if it was the second group that I created, or if it was halfway through the first group, I can't remember, but definitely there came a time where I realized, okay, what would be the most helpful is that if we kind of co-created this together. So we set our intentions. What do we want this group to look like? What do we want to accomplish every time that we get on the call together? What do we want to avoid? Because I think it can sort of get into a bit of a, I hate to use this term, but like a little bit of a bitch fest. Like, are we there to vent about our partners, or are we not? And being honest about what we want from the group, because time, I have come to know now now that I'm middle-aged, time is to me more valuable than money.
Yes.
I can always make more money. I cannot get my time back. So if we're going to spend 90 minutes or so on the call together once a month or whatever, let's be really intentional about what we all need from each other during that time.
Beautiful. So how many masterminds have you been a part of, or how many have you led?
I think probably 5 at this point. So that first one was my youngest was a baby. So probably that was 2010.
Awesome.
And some of them have been shorter than others, but this one that I've been in now, we've been going strong for a couple of years now.
Awesome.
And for me, they've always been women. I'm, I think, a natural born leader. And so I just am someone who is like, okay, hey, let's, just kind of bossy, and I embrace that.
Yeah, that's so good.
Put it together, and
so many people want one of these. I mean, it's almost like wanting a mentor, right? I mean, everybody in the world like wants this person or this community that's supporting you, and yet most of us just kind of want it to happen, or we don't know where to go look for it. So it's such a powerful thing to really believe, hey, I can get this started. And even if somebody doesn't feel like a natural born leader, to be able to say, who could I reach out to if we could, 2 or 3 of us could get this started and make this happen? It's a beautiful gift you give. So when you've done so many of them, I'm going to ask more general questions then, because you've got a breadth of experience here. I'm curious about, do they disband? And you don't have to get into specifics. Do they disband because something happens? Does it kind of fulfill its purpose? Did everyone agree this is going to be a 1-year thing and then it's over? Mm-hmm. Like, what does it look like when we all set into this? How do we know when it's done and when to start another one?
Yeah, it's all been pretty organic when they have, kind of fallen apart. And I think that looking back, what has ended up happening is that they'll go strong for a while, and then one person, something will be going on in their life. Like, what it's like to have a book come out into the world, and the amount of time and energy that's demanded of you. I know that for me, I think that maybe both times I've had a book come out where I've said, hey, I am going to put this on pause, or I'm going to be gone for a few months, and then I would love to come back if you all are still willing. And both times there's been somebody else in the group who said, you know what, I think I'm done too. And it's never, I don't think in the history of me having masterminds, anything personal has happened where there's been a falling out or an argument or anything like that. It's just, 1 or 2 members will get to a point in their life where maybe they feel like they've outgrown it, and they just have said, it's not personal, but it kind of is personal. Like, or somebody's going through a really difficult time and they just don't have the time and energy to dedicate to the group as it deserves. So again, it has always been a little bit of an organic process. And then personally, I just kind of pick up and create a new one. So I do think that I am a big believer that the universe hands you whatever it is that you need to have. I do recommend people, like, if you feel like you've outgrown it, don't stay in. It's like any friendship. Like if you truly feel like it's not serving you anymore, then gracefully bow out. I mean, there are ways and to be kind and honest and graceful about it.
Beautiful, beautiful. So when you've done all of these, so you would definitely not put any attachment that if the group doesn't last forever, it was a failure or anything. I think so many people are afraid that, like, and every group I've ever been a part of, it's so funny when I wrote my first book, I was like, I'm a part of this group, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, da, 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 da. And then it was so funny because by the time the book comes out, you're like looking through it a year and a half later and you're just like, this group's not meeting anymore and this friend moved away. And it's just amazing how much there's an ebb and flow to life. But I think so much that scares us that somehow we shouldn't start something because we can't keep it going forever. So your story is a beautiful taking kind of a different frame of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think too, maybe the thing that doesn't get talked about as much, because I always like to talk about the things nobody likes to talk about, is that sometimes you might be in a group and feel like they're kind of holding you back in a way. And let me explain that a little bit more. So maybe you are taking really big, bold action, and there's people in the group who are still in the growing phase of really working on their fear, or maybe it's like they're stuck in stories around money, or they're stuck in stories about success, and like they have some work to do on that. It's nothing, it's not to judge or make those people wrong. It's just that that's where they're at right now. And if you're in a very different place, it might be time to move on. Like if you feel like you're the one who is kind of, and that's what I mean by like outgrow the group. I think that for women, and I think it's important to point out, many times we can stay in a relationship, whether it's a friendship or a mastermind or a romantic partnership, because they feel bad. Like these people need me. How could I walk away from them? And I don't want them to think I'm better than them, or I'm too big for my britches and all of these things. Like cut them loose, like let them go. It's not about making them bad or wrong. It's about knowing that they have some growth to do to catch up with you. And that's okay. Like I spent a long time holding on to beliefs or even friendships where I felt like I didn't want them to feel bad. I didn't want to make other people uncomfortable. I didn't want to disappoint people. I didn't want to make people feel like I was too good for them. So I stayed back, and that has held me back. And so I feel like it's worth pointing out that it's okay to outgrow a person or a group. Mm-hmm. It's how you deliver the message and how you show up when you are, whatever that walking away looks like, is what matters.
Yeah. I've found, and I don't know if yours are more organic than this, I have found that with masterminds, especially because we're not getting together just for social reasons or just for friendship. I don't say just for friendship, but there is a purpose to, like, there's a sense that we're trying to move something forward. I have found that the clearer the purpose or the objective, like this mastermind is going for 90 days and we each have to pick a goal that we're going to like move forward in our businesses and support each other for those 90 days. Or this group we're all authors and we're going to like really show up every single time together on the phone, supporting and talking about what it's like behind the scenes there for a year, and so it has felt like the ones to me that have done the most value have often been the ones that had the most, like we all each picked or knew what it is we were like working on or focusing on. And it kind of had a defined period of time or whatever. So I don't know if yours, that's great if you could advocate for the more, or like if yours all feel more organic in that sense. But yeah.
I love that. I really love that idea. Mine have been a little bit different. And this is, I think, the beauty of this is that you can really seek out or even create whatever it is that you want. Mm-hmm. So the theme that the ones that I have been in has been, there's no set end date, but we all are somewhere around the same level of experience and success in our businesses. So mine have mostly been for, there are other female entrepreneurs, but I love being in masterminds where we have different niches. Mm-hmm. So, might have one person who she is a business coach and the other person helps creatives only. And so it can be a little bit, not really incestuous, but where we kind of sometimes get out of ideas if we're all in the exact same niche, the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So it can be really helpful to have people that aren't in your industry,
Yeah.
but you all own your own business. And then maybe you all struggle in areas of stepping into your power a little bit, or maybe you still have some old limiting money beliefs, or you are struggling even a little bit in your personal life. Like, there's always something for us to work on. And it's about really having the same intention and goal in mind. And maybe that goal isn't super specific. Like, it could be, I love that, your ideas of, you want to sell the most books possible, and that's what you're all going to help each other with. But maybe the goal is like, I want to be the absolute best version of myself. Mm-hmm. And walking in, I think what kind of the guidelines, if you will, that I have is, of course, you're still going to have fear, but I want people who have fear and take action anyway, who have fear and are also courageous and aren't afraid to talk about it. So that's sort of the theme that I like to have around me.
Very cool. Very wonderful. So what have you found from all your years of experience? Do you kind of have like a format? Is this like monthly feels like the best? Is it always virtual, or is it weekly, or like, do you do check-ins? Like, what format has kind of landed and been the most fulfilling and meaningful to you?
Great question. Like, people always want to know, like, logistics, how does it work? So
give us
we started, and the technology has improved over the last decade. And so before we used
you
to
and your masterminds,
right? I know, so much better. We used to use like free conference calling, which was fine at the time, but now we all meet on video, which I think can be so helpful and just intimate to be able to see each other's faces. And I mean, I have been in them for so long. Like, they have seen me through the death of my father. They have seen me through difficult times with my husband, like ups and downs in that, challenges with my children and with the rest of them, like deaths and breakups and all of these things. And so there's definitely intimacy there within the friendships, as well as, like the mastermind part of it. But we meet monthly. The format that works best for me and our groups is we meet monthly, and it's typically like right now, the group that I'm in, we meet on the last Monday of every month at 12:30 Eastern time. So I have, I think 2 or 3 of them are on the West Coast. So it's 9:30 for them. We meet for 90 minutes. And I'm always the timer because I'm bossy like that. And so I get my iPhone out, I set the timer. We have one woman who prays us in, and she just does these like beautiful sort of like intentional breathing exercises. And because I'm like probably the least woo-woo out of all of them. And so she does that. And then I start the timer, and then depending on how much chit chat we've done, which I try to keep that to a limit because that's not what we're there for, each person has about 12 minutes. Okay. So they bring something. So for instance, if I'm going to host a retreat and I'm like, I would love some out of the box ideas. One time I brought to my mastermind, and this was really vulnerable for me. I said, I'm really working on stepping into, 2019 is my year of like really stepping into what I'm afraid of the most. And that's like my own power. Tell me what you love about me. Like, what do you see in me and it was like one of the most uncomfortable 12 minutes of my life, Shasta. I will tell you that.
That's a big act of vulnerability. I love it.
Because so they told me in their own words, all 4 of them, what they see in me and what they would love to see more of me, like what my superpowers are. So I actually recorded that on Zoom so I could go back and listen to it. Aww. And then we also use a tool, I'll show you for people that might not know what this app is. So we use a tool called Voxer. If you can see it there at the bottom, that little orange walkie-talkie. So it's a voice messaging app. It's similar to WhatsApp. I know that's a popular one too, or Marco Polo, where you can create group chats and it lets you text, send pictures and GIFs. We use it a lot for voice. Nice. So that's for in between, for check-ins, or if someone has a quick question where they can't wait until our monthly call. And I was just listening to messages this morning. One of the women in my group is having, she wants to make an offer at a retreat that she's having and wants to do it in a way that feels good to her. So she was asking for different ideas. And so that's kind of the logistics of how it works. And it works beautifully. Yeah.
So each person has 12 minutes, and during that time they get to they can do all the talking, or they can say, this is what I need, and then do all the listening, but their thing is 12 minutes. Any wisdom for any people when like coming and trying to figure out what are the best things to bring, or what are the things that work the best for a mastermind? Like what asks do people make that, I feel like a lot of people show up to these things and are like, I don't know what I need, or I don't know what I want. And do you find that your group is like, okay, I'm thinking ahead of time about what I'm coming and what I need, and any wisdom to help us kind of think through that better?
That just comes with experience. I think this particular group, we're all seasoned coaches. And so we know, being the coach and client, we know that you are going to see the most growth when you are intentional about what it is that you want, and I know that you know this, like if someone comes to if a client comes to a call and they don't know what their topic is, like what they want to work on, you can spend 15, 20 minutes herding cats, trying to figure out what it is that you want. So we're also really great about, if somebody, for instance, we had one person in our group, her college boyfriend had died, and she's in her 40s, and it was just really affecting her, and so that's just what she brought, and we sort of intuitively knew she just wanted to be seen and heard in this grief of this news that she just got that day, and we just let her talk. And we might jump in there and say, like, how can we support you best right now? Like, what is it that you need from us? And that's just a beautiful thing to do in friendship. I mean, as you know, I know you teach this, but just reminding people, like, hey, you can ask it, or you can just talk if that's what it is that you need. And at that moment, that's all it was that she needed. So yes, we're all very good at thinking ahead of time and knowing what it is that we need to ask for. And like, there are still moments though where we come to the call where we just have had a shit day, and we're like, I don't know what I want, but I just need to clear all this.
Yep. But to even know that, I think is so powerful. I think I put a list together that when I teach community makers, it's a list of all the different asks that I've thought of that people could do, the categories, because I think it's so important. Like, it's okay to just say, I just need validation. I just need you to tell me this sucked, but like,
I need you to be on my side.
Yeah. But because otherwise you're going to start getting advice, and like you walk away and you're like, that didn't feel good. And you're just like, I actually just want you to all agree with me. And like, okay, then just tell us that. And we'll be like, yeah. Yes. But it's just to kind of check in with myself beforehand. I've noticed is huge, because otherwise it's easy to walk away and be like, yeah, that didn't feel good, and then kind of blame everyone else for not coming through, when I'm just like, I probably could have been a little clearer what I was looking for. But
yeah, it is that you need.
It does take a lot of experience and kind of self-reflection a little.
For sure.
So you've got this huge, I love that you've been doing these for so long. That's so awesome. So as we kind of wrap up, for anybody who wants to kind of start one, anyone who's just like, I would love the idea of being with a group of women, supporting each other and really showing up in each other's lives and businesses around something, what advice would you have that we didn't cover? Like, is there anything that you would say would be helpful to them to really think through ahead of time, or that would serve them as they're getting started or picking the right people? What would anything else that would be helpful?
A couple of things. So one thing that I didn't mention that might be helpful for people is that some people ask me, like, do you guys pay for this? Like, is there any money? It's like the I call them peer masterminds, and they're free. So nobody pays anything except our time, which of course is very valuable. I'm also in one for the first time in all of these years that I've been doing this. I'm in a paid mastermind. It was a lot of money. It's for a full year, and there is actually a leader at the helm, and she's guiding us, and we meet 4 times a year, and that's all paid for. So it's like all included in the cost. And we meet twice a month on calls. And so that's different for a couple of reasons, because there's a lot of skin in the game, because I'm paying a lot of money. So it's interesting what happens psychologically when we pay that much money. Like, you bet your ass that I'm going to be showing up for everything, and also asking the most of myself when you're paying that much money for something. But as far as to more specifically answer your question, I would just think very carefully about who you want in, and also be very clear when you invite people and say, like, here's what I'm thinking, just so like loose guidelines, but then save room to co-create it for people. And also, like, all ideas are welcome. It's like, it's not a dictatorship unless you want it to be. I don't recommend it, but it's a democracy in the group. But also, it's nice to, when someone invites you to something, to say, like, here's what I'm thinking that it might look like. They're more likely to give you a clear answer, yes or no, like if they can if they can do it. And I also, my last piece of advice is, when you have this group, have your very first meeting be like, everybody just talks about what it is that they want to get out of it. And I think one of the most important things also to agree on in the group is, I think it goes without saying, it's confidentiality within the group, as well as make it sacred. So this isn't like, oh, I don't feel like going today, so I'm not going to go. Like, it's not like just some like free yoga class, you know, at the community center. This is sacred. Yeah. It's important. And just like everyone agrees, like this is important. Yeah. This is something that you're all truly, truly committed to. Because if one person doesn't show just because they didn't feel like it, that can really affect the group. You know,
totally.
It's like,
it becomes contagious.
Yeah, that. And like, I know I've been disappointed where I'm like, oh, I'm going to ask them about speaking, like public, you know, pulling this into my model. And the one person that I really wanted the advice from, who was seasoned, didn't want to go that day. And so I was like, so I know stuff happens, people get sick and things like that, but just having that conversation, looking at each other and saying like, this is sacred. Let's really commit.
I love that. And in most of these cases, when you're gathering up people and thinking of who you want to invite, they don't all necessarily know each other.
No, not necessarily. It's nice when they do, but I think I've seen beautiful friendships come around. And actually, like the group that I'm in, we had one person who moved to Australia, and so the time zones weren't working out, so she couldn't be in it anymore. So we opened up the spot, and it was actually one of my friends, and she didn't know the other 3 women in there, and it just was really seamless. This person, I had been in another mastermind with her, and so she was really committed. And you get to a place where you trust each other enough to where it's like, okay, if Andrea trusts this woman, has known her for years, then, you know, if she's a friend of yours, she's a friend of mine type of thing. And so that's always great too.
Good. So what I'm hearing, among many other good things, is just kind of you're clear about like what you're wanting to get out of it, and then kind of looking for people intuitively a little bit to kind of figure out who are the people who share this in common, or even whether it's things that we have all in common, or kind of qualities or goals or whatever. It's like finding what you want and then kind of reaching out and making those invitations. And everybody needs to be kind of in at least agreement on that aspect of it, and on their willingness to commit to. And in your case, you were saying it's a monthly thing ahead of time, which is awesome. And then from there, it's, I love so your first session is going around and each person sharing what it is you want to get out of this, like what, kind of what your big picture goal is, or how we can.
What do you want? What do you don't want?
Love it. And then when do you have the conversation? Is it like the next time? Do you more of like, what do we want from this together? What are our do's, our don'ts, all that stuff? Or does that all take place in your first one?
More so in the beginning. And then I think you just get into a rhythm and it's flowed from there. And it's like, wouldn't it be great if like all friendships started this way? Like,
totally. I was going to say, I mean, there's such beauty. I wish so many friendships, we don't feel like we have the permission to like actually have some structure around it, you know, but their structure is so helpful it's committing to something and participating and showing up and sharing the time.
Yes.
All that stuff I'm a really big timekeeper too in all of my groups, because I'm like, the worst thing is somebody leaving and not having had time to be seen and stuff. Yeah. So I love that.
Or if one person like goes on for too long and there's no time. That's just the anxiety girl in me is like, and I love the mastermind concept, because with friendship, like a new friendship, like if you just 2 of you are meeting somewhere, you're not like setting a timer and being like, okay, you talk half the time and I talk half the time. But 2, like you were saying earlier, sometimes we come with things and one person's perspective is great, and it's great to have that friend that does that, but sometimes it's nice to hear from 4 different people on something, you know. And so I love the concept of masterminding, where you just get different wisdom, different feedback, different expertises. You know, just everyone encourages and offers in different ways. So I love that. Yeah. Very cool. Oh, I mean, I think we all have that. Like I always sort of joke that I have my one friend, Kate, and Kate is the friend who, if I want to get fired up about something, if I want somebody to grab her fiery, angry torch with me, I call Kate. My best friend, Amy, she's the one who will, if I'm angry about something, then she'll be the first to like point out like, well, you know, I think that there's, you know, like my part in it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, not ready for that. So it's like, it's great to have like all those personalities in a group. So you get a whole mix of it. Yes. But yes, there's definitely situations where something happens in my life and I'm like, I'm going to call Kate first before I call Amy. I need someone
It's
to be
good that we
proud of.
each know what each friend brings and gives and does. That's
And they're
awesome.
they know that about, that I think that, and it's kind of funny, but yeah, it's important.
That's awesome. Well, before we go, hold up your book. I see it right behind you.
Oh yes.
And tell us how you feel like your groups, your mastermind helped make this book happen.
Oh my gosh. I have a quick story about it. So yes, this is the English version. It's How to Stop Feeling Like Shit. That's confetti all
Love
over
it.
the front of it. And I was this mastermind that I was in, and this is a funny, quick story. So Samantha Bennett, she's one of the people in there, and I'm sure she won't mind me talking about her. She's so great. She's a creativity coach. And
Is she the one that prays you all in?
Yes.
She's such a good prayer.
She's such a good prayer. She's the one that prays us in. And so this book was about to come out, and we were all in our group together, and she was talking to a different member. She wasn't even talking to me. And she said, what if you just let this thing be as big as it needs to be? And it struck me so much. And so this is also the beauty of being in groups, whether it's group coaching or a mastermind or a friendship circle or knitting circle or whatever it is, that someone says something wise, like the thing that you needed to hear, and they may not even be saying it to you. Yeah. And that's what happened in that moment. She wasn't saying it to me, but I took that and was like, oh, what if I let this project be as big as I wanted it to be? And with my other book, my first book, that came out in I think it was December of 2012, I think. And I still was I had a lot of growth work to do when that book came out. I was so afraid of being thrust out into the spotlight. And I honestly believe that energetically, I blocked some success with that book. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want that to be the case with this baby. Mm-hmm. And so I worked on that, and I just asked myself the question, like, what do I need to do to get out of the way and let her be as big as she wants to be? And I didn't know what that actually looked like. Yeah. I just worked, it was like journaling. It was, some rituals around just letting go of my own fear of the spotlight and fear of being seen truly. And so now we have 17 foreign language deals with this book. So I know, right? And I didn't know what it was going to look like. So I don't think it's any coincidence. And of course I do. I embrace my talent and all of that good stuff. And I think that me doing the energetic work to release her and just let her go as far and wide as she needed to be. And I had no idea. I never even set an intention. I want to have, 20 foreign deals and have it be that wasn't my intention. Yeah. My intention only was to just let it be as big as she needed to be. Beautiful. And that was just one example of what came from that group. Yeah. And it wasn't even something that was said directly to me.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great story. That's one of my favorite things about masterminds. I talk a lot about, I find that women, we often do a better job being vulnerable when things are going badly, and we're comfortable talking about this and kind of playing small and kind of doing that shrinking thing and playing humble and all that kind of stuff. And I find that years ago, I was just like, I want the kind of friends that I know aren't just with me in the low times, but in the high times too. Like, I want the friends who we are like all about each other's success. And I think a mastermind just sets that up so beautifully. It invites us where you're hanging out with women who are just like able to be big in their own way and aren't threatened by your dreams, and can kind of like inspire us and hold that space for us. Mm-hmm. And keep saying, this is okay. This is like normal. You don't need to feel bad for this. I mean, that's just such a beautiful to be able to know that you're putting this book into the world with 4 other women believing in you and like watching you, witnessing you, and helping put that energy out there is super beautiful.
I want to tell one quick more story. And I don't know if someone told me about this or I read it somewhere. So this isn't something that I do, but I love this so much. So I don't even think that this is a group of women entrepreneurs. I think it was a group of women who were really good friends. And I do think that if you did something like this, it would have to be a group of women that you sincerely trust. So they have a group text, a simple group text where they would just text each other. And I don't know if they even met like mastermind style, but it was just this group text where they supported each other. And it was like these 4 women. They also I don't think it's like a regular thing, but they send each other nudes and celebrate the shit out of each other. So they'll send each other like a topless nude, and then they'll all respond. It's like, woman, you are a goddess. Like, you look amazing. Holy crap. Look at those boobs. Like, I heard that and I was like, that's amazing. That is amazing.
You have to have serious amount of trust there.
So much trust. And maybe like delete who knows, but I loved that story so much. Like how often, you know, in this world of difficult situations when it comes to, you know, news and all of this stuff, I'm like, how awesome is that they took this and we're like, no, we're going to own it and we're going to celebrate the crap out of each other in a world that makes women feel not enough. And I think I'd want to say that they were like middle-aged too, which I think is even more amazing.
For sure. But I mean, it represents like you want to create something with people that you can show up and celebrate and see the best in each other and be vulnerable and be naked in whatever way that looks like. It's a great story.
It's a great metaphor for life. Like truly naked.
Always ask before you join a mastermind, which is this the kind where we get naked or not? Because that's an important.
Maybe you want that. Maybe you're not ready for that. Either way, you do you.
Oh, it was such a joy to have you. Thank you for making the time. And thank you for I think about all the different groups you've had and all the women, if you have 4 at each of them and all those, you just think about those 20 some women out there being bigger in this world and think about what it's done for you. And I just hold so much gratitude for you inspiring all of us. And I hope that someone watching this video decides to kind of stop and be like, I think I want to be a community maker. And it doesn't have to be like this huge, like gather the whole world together, but just like, what do I want to make in this life and who can I pull around me to do that with? And thank you so much for giving your wisdom and your experience for all of us, Andrea.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. And let us know when that book deal, when you get to the 20, 18 is awesome. I'm so proud of you. That's so cool.